Hello there and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host Joe Rimmer, joined today by Paul Gorst. How are we, Paul?
Yeah, all good. Getting there, aren't we? 3 games left.
Yeah.
Nearly at the end of a historic tenure. And then...
Are you leaving?
Well, no.
Are you running out
not
there?
yet, no. And then the plaudits will come, won't they? But yeah, I think... I'm like Jurgen Klopp now. I think I'm just waiting to get to the end of it all.
Yeah. Are you also waiting to get to the end of it all, Ian Doyle?
Is that just a general comment?
Yeah.
Is that the season? Yeah, well, you know me. You know, the minute the first game starts, I'm already counting down the games to the end of the season. So
it's great.
Like Paul.
By the way, sorry, just to interrupt you, the case of the missing mug has been resolved.
Oh, there it is. There,
What?
yeah.
Is this? Hang on. Sorry. This is. I'm sorry to interrupt the podcast with an urgent. What is my mug doing on the shelf? Have you been using my mug as a prop?
Decorative.
So you went into the cupboard and took my mug. I've been looking for it all day and used it as a prop.
No, that's a real day.
This is a Blood Red first.
Don't be blaming me.
You literally put it there.
Hang on a minute. Can anyone actually hear what you're saying? No, this is.
Sorry,
Can we get this back on?
Yeah,
we can debate this
sorry.
afterwards. Sorry, Joe.
So that was me arguing with our producer Ian Doyle, Ian Kroll, because
He's never been so
he's
offended.
he's stolen my mug that I've been looking for for this half a day, and put it here. So sorry if you're listening at home. That
Can we
probably
just
isn't
get
the
on with
best
it? Because
start.
we'll have the first comments. We'll
Yeah.
fast forward to 2 minutes
Yeah.
40 when podcasts
Yeah.
out. That's right. So, yes, I'm looking forward to the end of the season.
Right.
And like Paul,
Yeah.
I'm very much invested in Klopp now leaving. I think it's time. And judging from the comments that Jurgen Klopp made today, which we're going to discuss shortly, I think he is as well.
Okay, well, that very, very good. Right, sorry for that disrupted start. This podcast is brought to you by NordVPN. Thanks, Nord, for their sponsorship. It really keeps us going. So a big thank you to them. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. And our link gives you 4 months extra free on a 2-year plan. There's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And the link will be in the podcast description box. So thank you, Nord. We are live on YouTube. So if you're listening, drop in a comment, drop in a question. We'll try and get round to it. Give us a like. Please give us a thumbs up. Always want a few more thumbs up. Press the bell for notifications, which is always nice. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or anywhere like that, give us a review. Give us some stars. Give us 5. Don't give us less than 3. 3 plus.
I'd be pushing for 4,
5.
to be honest.
Yeah,
if you can only be
4.
bothered giving 3, don't be bothered giving any at all.
Yeah. Well, that's what I always say. Anyway, it's been a busy day for you two. You started the day at the AXA training ground, Gorst, here at Jurgen Klopp's press conference, and it seems to be Jurgen had a few scores to settle, and
Yeah.
interesting one.
It reminded me of Father Ted in the Christmas special where he's received the Golden Cleric and he uses it to settle a few scores. I think he's kind of winding down the days now, isn't he? And he just thought, right, today's the day, the gloves are off, the feet are up, and I'm going to take aim. And TNT came in for it, didn't he? He said, take me off your subscribers list when I'm finished, and it's a TV station I'll never watch again once I've left. And player welfare was, of course, at the top of the agenda. Said the situation with Mo Salah has been resolved, revealed that there's maybe an injury to Virgil van Dijk, and Conor Bradley's back in training. Diogo Jota's no closer, and the one about the FIFA presidency as well. You know,
Yeah,
he's not running
he's
for FIFA.
not running for
I
that.
wouldn't last swimming in a sea full of sharks or something like that. He said, and also, he had a few off the cuff remarks, and the TNT one was the interesting one for me because that was like a 2-3 minute monologue that had nothing to do with
He had nothing to do with the question.
Nothing to do with the question. And at one point, he actually stopped and said, "What's the question again?" And then just carried on. And you know,
sounds like me on these pods.
yeah, if this is going to be to last the next few weeks, then I'm all for it. To be honest, because you know, with the best will in the world, we've covered hundreds of them press conferences, haven't we? And at times it can become a bit mundane and a bit routine when there's nothing particularly riding on the game that you're there to preview. So I guess there's not a lot riding on Liverpool's season now. The Champions League qualification is secure and they're probably not going to win the league. Well, they're almost certainly not going to win the league. So I'm all for a little bit of a different edge to Jurgen's press conference, and it was quite funny really just listening to him. And you know, you're trying to keep up with it for our live blog, but at some point you were just looking thinking, what's he going on about? You know, he really decided to take aim at TNT, and it brightened up what could have been an otherwise mundane press conference.
Yeah, he doesn't like TNT Sports. I'm not a huge TNT lover either.
Yeah, it was. Shall we say it now? An explosive rant. It wasn't really a rant, though, was it?
It wasn't a rant.
I don't think it wasn't a rant. It wasn't a tirade. I think it was just. I think picking up.
Did you mean was that a play on words because it's TNT?
Yeah, well done.
Yeah. No, I was
good,
just double checking.
Okay. It's Friday.
Well done, Ian. Yeah.
No, thank you. Going back to what we were talking about. I think that Liverpool are pretty much finishing third, and he's leaving at the end of the season. I think he has just decided, and there's no more 12:30 kickoffs as well for him.
Yeah.
I think he's just went, you know what? Forget this, as it would be dubbed if it was being shown before the watershed. He's just going to go for it, and I think, well, he has done, and I just think he's only just getting started. I think I have written something today, and I've mentioned, look, if you're Paul Tierney, who's the referee, by the way, on Sunday, if you're Darren England, if you're the November 2007 Premier League Player of the Month, Cabby Agbonlahor, if you're Gary Neville, if you're...
That month for the Premier League. Premier League standards.
Well, funny enough, we'll come back to November 2007 in a second. If you're any of them, you've got to be thinking, oh, hang on, is he going to go after me next? Because he's going to not so much settle scores, because I don't think that's fair to say that. I think it's more the things that he's been annoyed with, and not necessarily individuals. I don't think he'll go after the referees, to be fair, or any of those people I mentioned. But just thinking in general, he will start commenting on stuff that to be fair with the fixture stuff, he did put it in the context of, and I think it's a fair point to make, people will be saying the Premier League's rubbish now that Aston Villa just lost 4-2. And no other teams got to semi-finals. But his point is, well, what did you expect? We're playing in the top teams, City, Liverpool, Arsenal. They're playing at such a high level, a high intensity, and they're having to win week after week after week. That it comes to a point where something gives. If you look at Arsenal in the Champions League knockout stages, lost, won, but only got through on penalties, drew and lost. Yeah. And City played 2 games against Real Madrid and managed to score 3 goals at the Bernabeu and still didn't get through. So, are you telling me that Real Madrid and Bayern Munich are better than Arsenal and Man City if they played each other 10 times? I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know people might argue about Real Madrid, but I'm not having Bayern Munich as being better than Arsenal. So I do think, and I'm not having Atalanta being better than Liverpool. Sorry, just not having it. So I do think that he's right to say, look, what do you expect? The Premier League is the best league in the world, he says, but it's the most intense, and we've got all these fixtures. That's why you're going to see eventually it's going to affect teams, and it has affected those ones. So he's probably right with that. With the half-12s, we know Liverpool, during his time in charge, they had more half-12s than anyone else for some reason. I don't necessarily buy into the fact, it's for certain overseas markets like to watch Liverpool. So, well, they like to watch Man United as well. So how come United haven't had... Well, United haven't been as good over this period. Well, that's fine, but they still should have had way more games. And obviously after...
What are you trying to say? You think it's done?
I haven't finished yet. Sorry. International breaks as well after them. They've had a lot of half-12s. Is it being done on purpose? Well, yeah, they don't accidentally do them.
No,
I'm not saying it's not. Yeah, I don't think it's been done to annoy Klopp. But what I would say is, human nature is such that if you know that it can be influenced by people complaining about you. If someone's complaining about you all the time, and it comes to a decision that's 50-50, you might just go, well, you know what? Even if it's subconsciously doing it, so. That would be my view. And you know what? Klopp's leaving in 2 weeks, so he's entitled to say what he said. Is he wrong? I'm going to ask you that. Is he wrong with what he said?
I don't think so. I think we'll come to this in a little bit when we talk about Tottenham, but football is obviously the most tribal thing, most tribal sport, certainly. And it's very difficult for anyone to make a good point. If you look at, say, Jamie Carragher's column today, he's getting a bit of stick about that, and we've discussed that. I think very good on Everton, and it's quite difficult when someone you don't like makes a very good point. And I think with Klopp, he's often sort of told it how it is with a lot of the kick-off times, and I think if more clubs sort of got on board with what he was saying, then perhaps everyone would be a little bit happier with where they are.
The problem you've got
Liverpool
is
have got more 12, 30 kickoffs than
Guardiola has said exactly the same thing, and of course they're two, and Arteta said it to a certain degree, and of course they're the 3 teams that are at the top and are the ones who are competing for honours, and it's a completely separate conversation with should these 3, 4, 5, 6 teams at the top, everything changes just for these 6. I don't think so, but I think there are ways and means where what Klopp said is correct with certain dealing with certain fixtures. There's easy fixes, and for some reason they just don't want to do it. They're very pig-headed about it. It's not just about Liverpool, it's about other teams as well. And the thing about Klopp, from the first minute he came into the country to when he's now leaving in 2 weeks, he's been completely consistent, everything he said, and in 9 years, absolutely next to nothing has changed.
Yeah, I never really believe in this. You know, everyone says, "Oh, Klopp shouldn't complain, Pep shouldn't complain, Arteta the same because they've got the most resources." Because it's all relevant. Because these teams play in the most competitions and also ultimately as well, the players are human beings. You know, like it doesn't matter how much resources you've got and how many massages you can get after games. Virgil van Dijk plays, 50, 60 games a season. It's going to impact on his body, isn't it? And it's going to impact on his performances and perhaps his mental health, all those sorts of things. So, yeah, Liverpool might have more money than other teams, but it's all relative, and Liverpool play a hell of a lot, and the expectation is very high, isn't it? So it was like last season when people accusing Arsenal of bottling this and bottling that. I think you can't. You've got to take into account the amount and the intensity at which these teams play, and it's the same for Liverpool this season. I think it's no coincidence that it all fell apart within a few weeks, and especially towards the end of the season.
Yeah. And also as well, the quality of the league, with respect, let's say Olympiacos v Villa yesterday is an example. Olympiacos aren't coming up against teams with the same amount of quality across the division as Aston Villa do regularly because of the money that's in English football, the amount of top-level coaches that they're able to attract as a result, and the amount of players that he can bring in. So, yeah, I certainly can see where Klopp was coming from in terms of saying, Arsenal, City and Liverpool should all be still in Europe, but the fact that they're not was because they were caught cold, because not necessarily that was the sole reason, but it certainly didn't help with, the quality of the league that they're in and some of the fixture times lining up with the European games and whatever else. Mm-hmm. And his point was sort of the league doesn't set out to help teams when they're representing that country in England, and I think that's been a gripe for years, hasn't it? Not necessarily just Klopp, but teams who've gone far in European competitions have often had to go with the Premier League for the positioning of the fixtures, whereas the Bundesliga will help you out, and they'll allow Bayern Munich to play on a Friday if they're playing again on the Tuesday as opposed to Saturday lunchtime or whatever it is. So yeah, maybe it's something to work with going forward, but then again, like you say, tribalism trumps all, doesn't it? And then you get other teams saying, well, why is the Premier League helping them? Helping Man City, for example, when we could be playing Man City on a Saturday lunchtime and try and catch them cold there, but now we're playing on a Friday night and they're going to be, whatever it is. It's a difficult one to get around, really.
I mean, as you guys said, it's not a Klopp thing. 24 years ago, Man United had to pull out of the FA Cup because they were playing in a Club World Cup. Yeah. What was it, 5 years ago? Well, 4 years ago, 4 and a bit. Liverpool had to play a kids team in the League Cup. Not the FA Cup, that was a separate thing. In the League Cup, so...
And Caprice was furious when United...
the FA Cup was. Every now and again, that'll do the rounds on social media.
Simon Weston was absolutely apoplectic.
But to be fair, it's 25 years on and we're still talking about it. Well, I'm still talking about it. But, I do think that that's an example of, they don't really help them. But, again, don't want to start a completely new podcast. I don't think necessarily the rules should all be changed just to look after 6 or 7 teams. And we're talking from the position of the club that we cover being one of those 6 or 7 teams. If you've got these massive squads and you want to win stuff, well, you've got to use all the players. But there are other ways and means where they can help them when they're playing these big games because they are representing the league. They are, because if the Premier League now is only going to have, well, I say only, but it's not going to get the extra place in the Champions League next season. So it's hurt everybody.
You think how much the Premier League wants to be known as the juggernaut of Europe, and they haven't got any representation in any of the 3 European finals.
That does happen now and again. You can't just keep on winning it all the time. But I do think that it's coming the season where they could have got the extra place in Europe, and I'm pretty sure in the next couple of years they'll get it anyway. But I do think that's kind of highlighted the issue, and of course Klopp's brought it up again, and we're actually talking about it, which is good because otherwise we'd just be talking about him saying funny stuff because he's leaving.
Yeah, I mean...
And it was funny, though.
I think the other thing is, like, you can't have... More going back to kick-off times, and obviously the FA Cup and all those different conversations around how many games should be in certain competitions, but certainly with kick-off times, I don't get how you can have one team have so many and then the next team have so few. It's got to be shared around equally. And look, a lot of people obviously want to watch Liverpool, but it doesn't exactly help if you're one of the clubs that's barely on TV. Because, all right, you might not have as many... hard kick-off times to get by, but at the same time, you don't get put out to a bigger audience. You don't get exposed to different audiences and different certain fans. So I think there could be better ways to sort of share it out.
Yeah, I don't think you should be hamstrung because you've got a worldwide fan base.
No.
I mean, the Premier League, they don't care about the match-going fans, do they? So, I mean, we know it's a money thing with overseas markets and whatever else, but why can't it be shared around more equally? I mean, it's affected us this season, hasn't it? Obviously, not poor us, but we're there at Wolverhampton at 10:30 in the morning on a Saturday lunch. Well, for the Saturday lunchtime kick-off, or staying over in London on Friday night for the Saturday game against West Ham. Just gone.
I mean, to be fair, we are getting paid to be there.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is, it's fans. Like, we're not moaning for us, but fans
we've all been fans and been to games, and we understand the problems that they have because we have to be there at the same time as them.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Hello, Joe.
In terms of, I am answering one of the people who are asking us a question on the YouTube. So keep your questions coming in. We will get round to them. You've been to a lot of Jurgen Klopp press conferences, 9 years of them. How does this rank in terms of his best showings of press conferences?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, like I say, if it's a humdrum run-of-the-mill Saturday game or as it tends to be Liverpool's Sunday afternoon game, you're there for the injury latest and then whatever else. But in
he
terms
often looks
of,
knackered, doesn't he? He often looks like, oh, God,
yeah. I mean, I do think that the amount of press conferences he was having to do 2 years ago when Liverpool were in every competition until the final knock-ins, I do think that played a part in his decision, to be honest, because I just think it's just a part of the job that he hates. I think he loves being a coach, but hates having to do 63 pre-match press conferences or whatever. But today was up there in terms of the sound bites, and it was just the no holds barred nature of it, wasn't it? It's just that I'm not bothered anymore. I'm just going to call out TNT Sports. I'm just going to have a little go with the FIFA presidents, and it was just it was on form really, and he hasn't always been on form. Maybe this season been okay, but certainly last season when he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world.
I mean, he's had more memorable ones. His first one, for example.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of it actually being when you're sat there going, WTF is going on.
Yeah.
I think for me that's the best one since Benitez coaching and training his team, which was November 2007, which is of course the month that Gabriel Connolly became the Premier League Player of the Month.
Without it being sort of argumentative with people.
Well, the thing about Benitez is one. It was calculated and he knew exactly what he was doing. Whereas Klopp clearly just turned up. He said, didn't he, at the start? He says we've got no pressure now, and he kind of relaxed into it and just went, I've just remembered something. I'm just going to go off on this. I've just remembered something. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next two. I mean, the reality is he probably might not say very much in that sense, but I'm rather hoping he does because it would be extremely, extremely funny. Maybe we could get in his ear and say, hey, listen, say this about this person.
Yeah.
Yeah, about Paul. Say, what do you really think about him?
Sick of that tall fella. It's usually the small fella that he's having to go at.
Yeah, and when he normally shouldn't be either.
Yeah. He did talk about the Salah situation, said it was a bit of a non-story, it was all resolved. Do you believe him? Not that it was resolved. But it's a non-story.
Probably. Look, it wasn't. I don't think it was taken massively out of proportion because of certainly what Salah said in the mix zone, and that only fanned the flames. But yeah, I think Salah would have come in training yesterday and would have all been sorted. Really, I can't really see why it would linger too much. I think too much was made of it just because it was Liverpool. Just because it was so jarring. You don't really see that at Liverpool much, do you? You might see it at other clubs, but I think that's what made it a big story, the fact that it was Liverpool, where problems are kept in-house more so than most others. I think it was all sorted, and I suppose the proof will be in whether he starts or not on Sunday.
Can I respectfully disagree with you that those things don't happen at Liverpool? I think Klopp's style of management is so emotional, and you look at him on the touchline roaring at anyone who comes near him. That must be hard as a player, mustn't it? Sometimes, I
just mean in terms of us spotting it, seeing it on camera and stuff.
Yeah. But I just think I can think of a few tete-a-tetes he's had on the touchline with his own players, even people that he respects and clearly likes, like Milner and Henderson, like we discussed in the last pod. And he's got no problem with having a big row with them. And I just think maybe him and Salah, I think he said that in his press conference, we respect each other enough. And if we hadn't worked together so long, it might have lingered. But because we know each other so well, it's it's kind of been resolved. But I do think that maybe Salah's just a bit like, because he was saying there was a few things wasn't there, Salah saying, "Oh, after 7 years service or whatever." I think Salah probably just thinks, "Come on, you know."
I've heard enough of him now. Yeah,
in a bit of bad form, but yeah. What did you make of it all, Dean? Because we haven't spoke to you about it. Quite a few people saying, "Would you sell Salah now?" So we'll come on to that. I mean, I know.
How would you
but
do
it's a
that?
question.
Yeah, sell your best player because he had a bit of a disagreement with somebody on the touchline.
To be fair, though, it's a debate. He's got 1 year left. They could
I
potentially
still wouldn't sell him.
get a lot of money for him.
32 in June.
Don't care.
Why not?
Don't care.
Why not?
Who are you replacing him with?
I'm not. Look, I'm not saying I will sell him.
I know. I'm just saying, just a general kind of thing.
But you're going to have to replace him anyway, aren't you, really, in the next 2 or 3 seasons?
You're right, but why replace him now until you have to? You don't have to replace him now. It's just silly otherwise. Why would you just, was it a non-story? No, because it clearly was a story. We had something to write about for a few days, which so good for us. No, let's be honest, we are journalists. So when you see that and you go, part of you goes, yes. Another part of you goes, I have to write about this. I mean, you know quite well it means next to nothing. So it did mean next to nothing. People have arguments all the time in this office. I'm pretty sure that, if they put the camera in here, they'd be like, look at that,
Especially
If
just
I-
pointing out producer over there.
Exactly.
If I speak, they will be fired
Just sweep
today.
it under the carpet. I mean, it's more that you never normally see it from Salah. I think that's the thing, because he's such an emotionally sound person in the sense that, you always see him laughing, but he's obviously not used to being injured, which he was, and not playing because he was rested, or he was dropped because he's been rubbish, right? And I'm pretty sure he'll start against Tottenham and probably score a hat-trick. That's probably what will happen, and then Klopp will go, well, there you go, I told you.
He did look like he had the bit between his teeth when he came on.
I thought he was
West
quite
Ham.
good when he came on.
Only for he only got 10 minutes, didn't he? But
Yeah.
that run in the second half, where he just surged up the pitch, and it was just like I'm going to show you type of thing.
So from my point of view, it wasn't a non-story, but it also wasn't a story.
I found it extraordinary how quick people are. It's always like this, isn't it? With anyone who's great, Klopp's had it, and players get it. Van Dijk, I think, got it a couple of years ago. How quick people are to write people off. Salah's had a bad campaign, and you think, hang on.
He's top scorer. He's had something like 37 goal contributions.
Yeah, I mean,
There's only Haaland, I think, has got more goals or assists per game in the Premier League this season, on average. It's like, he's still quite good,
And I think he's a classic case.
So don't sell him.
Yeah, you don't know what you've got till he's gone. And if Salah left this summer, I think people would get 2/3 of the way through next season. Not even 2/3, sorry, 1/3 of the way through next season. And go,
2/3 of the first game. I
Yeah,
know
and
what people are like.
My God, we miss Salah. It's also, I think people forget this. It's not easy to find goal scorers. Look at Arsenal. They're looking for a goal scorer, and Liverpool went years, didn't they, without finding regular goal scorers. So I think Salah is worth his weight in gold. I'd try and take him to the end of his contract, really. I do think that none of those forwards, have said in a few pods, are safe.
Gakpo is, I think. And
Safe?
Jota.
I think
Gakpo and Jota.
I think
Diaz might
they've
go.
got big
and
bids
I think,
for anyone. You'd have to consider it.
I think
Diaz is the interesting one for me.
Gakpo's the right age to stay.
If Liverpool, and I don't think they will, but if they got £40-odd million bid for Gakpo,
No.
you wouldn't consider
No.
it? I certainly would.
Nope.
I'd certainly consider it.
Nope,
for
I
Jota.
wouldn't.
See, my issue was always the same with stuff like that when you put those hypothetical questions across. I wouldn't trust Liverpool to buy a replacement for the money that they get for the player, and that's always the case for me. If they sell a player for 60 million, will they buy a player for 60 million to come and play in that player's position?
Well,
The proof of that is probably Coutinho. They did sell a player for 142 million, then bought one for 70, then bought one for 60. So they did spend it.
In two different positions.
Yeah, which
I think with Salah,
worked out in the end.
I think if they sold Salah, they would have to make some sort of statement.
But they did that with Mane, and that's what Nunes was there for.
Yeah. A couple of questions. Sylvia Williams says, do you think it's one of the reasons he's leaving? Just exactly what you said really before, Gorst. He finds the press events so boring. What about
boring?
you guys?
No, he suggested
what
it.
about you guys? I mean, I don't know whether she's saying, do you find them boring?
I mean, I don't think it's a reason one, but I certainly think when he has to do 3 a week and he's doing 3 a week for 4 months on end, I think it does drag him down a bit, especially when he gets asked pretty much the same, storylines most weeks. How's player A, player B, player C, or whatever. I do think it. I don't think it helps. Days like today might make him think, oh, it's quite fun actually. Let's make it a bit more like that going forward. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the main reason, but probably not helping overall, is it?
I do think as well, I think we've got to bear in mind that since even from when he first started, 2015, that the amount of responsibilities he have on broadcast obligations that he has to fulfill, because again, going back to pays his wage partly, they have to do that, so they actually spend less time with us, the traditional, what's it called, heritage media. We're not really, are we? Say we say speaking on a podcast that's going out live on YouTube, so we're not. But we are seen as more the traditional media. He's spending less. The players and the managers spend a lot less time with us than they do. A lot of them have to forcibly go onto television, so they've got to do it like at half time, full time, stuff like that. They're not full time, before the game. I mean, sorry.
Well, an interesting point is to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. So Vicky Golmasaw was there from Sky Sports today. So she will have done an interview with Klopp that is going out Sunday before the game, and that was before our press conference. And then, myself and my national colleagues get like 10 minutes with Klopp in a little side room. And then you spoke to Jarell Kwanzaa today, didn't you, in place of what would have been Klopp speaking to the Sunday newspapers. Yeah. So Klopp speaking to the Sundays hasn't really been a thing this season, has it?
Very few times.
We've tended to put players up
which is better for us.
Which is better for everybody. We get to get a different voice, different perspective on things. But I think it's to cut down his media workload as well. So I do think the increase in demands in terms of the rights holders and everyone after their own 10 minutes of flesh, I do think that has contributed to him feeling a bit wary at times, yeah.
He's been the manager of one of the biggest clubs in the world for the last 9 years, and the last Liverpool manager who did it for that long was Bob Paisley, which is more than 40 years ago, and they didn't have anywhere near the same kind of press attention or social media or anything like that, or pressure. So there you go.
A couple of comments from Edmund Power. Great name, that.
Ed Power.
Not
any relation to Max Power, Tranmere?
Yeah, I don't know.
Former Tranmere.
Not the greatest.
And also The Simpsons.
He basically says, by saying it means nothing, I think he means that the Salah Klopp argument means nothing. You guys don't understand human nature. You are copping out. So they
hang on. I now no longer want to be nice to Ed Power.
Well, he follows up with, what do you mean Arsenal looking for a goal scorer? They are top scorers, FFS. You guys are talk crap.
Well, hang on. You're the one who said that Arsenal were looking for a goal scorer, not us two.
I would still argue that Arsenal will be certainly looking for a single.
They've shared the burden around about 8 players, rather than 2 or 3.
Mr. Powerade, when Arsenal sign a striker in the summer, I'll allow you to do that.
And I think human nature. I actually think he's got the wrong end of the stick. I mean, human nature means that you do have arguments, but you also put arguments to bed. They don't always linger. And sometimes you work with people that you don't always get on with. I'm sure Klopp doesn't love every one of his players, but he gets the best out of them, doesn't he? So him and Salah might not be best friends. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're really, really close.
Yeah. Well, Teddy Sheringham and Andy Cole being the ultimate example of that.
So there you go. So you wouldn't sell Salah. No. I do think there's a willingness to write people off, like you say. There's these sorts of tentpole storylines that people like to cling to. Like player comes back from a long-term injury and he's finished. He'll never get back to those levels. Yeah. Salah, he's nearly 32. He's got to be on the slide because that's what conventional wisdom says you are. Yeah. I don't really believe it.
The best one was another media outlet that said recently that Alisson Becker isn't even in the top 12 goalkeepers in the Premier League and isn't the best goalkeeper at Liverpool. Based on basis of what?
Recency bias.
And how he's been playing on FIFA.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of recency bias with this whole season. One bad month or 5 weeks, and suddenly the whole season's been a write-off, and it's been awful. And
I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, can we just discuss that then? Because I've had this conversation with a few people and said, "Well, what do you make of the season so far?" And I says, "Well, literally, they had one bad performance all season, which was Atalanta at home, which was the one thing that they did terrible. You can lose at Everton, you can lose you can draw at United, you can lose at United in the FA Cup. That happens. They had one bad performance. They massively overachieved to be third and still mathematical chance of winning the league with 3 games with 2 weeks to go. They won a League Cup playing a load of kids."
And that was we said this in the last.
And they got back in the Champions League.
The League Cup, by the way, was an extraordinary final. It was a great final for Liverpool, and people forget that the season isn't always just about exactly what happens at the end of it. It's about moments, and that was a great moment. Yeah. And anyone that was there that day will have loved that. Anyone that was watched that on TV will love that. Clubs wait a lifetime for a moment like that, and Liverpool kind of make them quite often. So I think
Liverpool's great.
Overlooked.
great issue this year is that they overachieved to such an extent that they raised
Loser mentality,
they raised the expectations of everybody, including, I'd argue, not so much the supporters but a lot of the pundits, and certainly you too.
I was making a point the other day that when Klopp made his announcement, that turned.
That's a great crime.
What could have been a good season in terms of the first year of a new squad, essentially, and then it suddenly had to be a historic one, and anything that kind of fell short is considered a huge blow, which isn't necessarily fair, I don't think.
I think I'll happily argue the point with you on this, because I know that you want us to go.
No.
At the start of the season,
no.
I thought this is you. You thought Liverpool would finish fifth,
but
so
get in the Champions
they're
League.
Third,
but I thought they were going to get in the Champions League.
I'm still speaking as you
Sorry.
said before. Therefore, because they finished third and win a cup, that we should all go, yeah, brilliant, great season. We've overachieved based on the standards that you set for them at the start of the season. You can be gutted to get to the final 4 or 5 games and miss out on the title. That is natural. You absolutely should be. Leicester City, had they finished second the season that they won the title, would have been absolutely devastated because their dream of winning the title would have died on the last day of the season. That is totally normal. It's human nature. You should take a step back later on and go, you know what, we gave it a good go. It's like getting to the Champions League final. You absolutely want to win it, but it doesn't mean that getting there wasn't an achievement. But you can be gutted about getting there and not winning.
Yeah, I'm not saying people can't be gutted.
You sort of go like, I always knew this was going to happen.
Hang on, I
so
never said
therefore
that.
like this isn't. I'm not bothered about this result. When it's okay to be bothered, Ian. Like you can have emotions and feel. You can be gutted that they lost
we
the derby,
don't do emotions
rather
in
than text me
journalism. Come
immediately
on.
after the derby saying that you're not bothered because you
asked me.
It's fine. It's fine.
You asked me? No, because without which to say I told you so. I wasn't.
You literally said I told you so.
I said that Liverpool wouldn't win the league. Could they win the league? Yes. Will they going to win it? No. Is when we were talking from about January onwards. And are you disappointed that they didn't win it? Well, of course. But I'm not going to be disappointed like you might have been in 2014 when it was like, oh, we should have won it. Liverpool should not have won this league. Liverpool should have won it in 2014. They should have won it in 2019 as well. But they then did have, obviously, the big caveat of going on to win the Champions League. So that helped. Whereas going back to what I said right at the beginning, the most disappointing result this season was the Atlanta game, because even if they'd fallen away in the league, they would have probably got to the Europa League final, and that's the one game that's probably most disappointing. The people should be disappointed more than anything, because they then went to Atlanta and won, and I don't necessarily think Atlanta are a great team.
It's the Crystal Palace one for me. Like, you can't expect to win European competitions no matter who you are and what level you're at, but that Crystal Palace defeat totally killed momentum in the league. It totally killed any hopes, and all of a sudden, almost with the flick of one result, it was like everything's gone now.
Yeah.
And I think I called it at the time the most damaging home defeat in the Premier League since Chelsea in 2014, and it was that same sort of disruptive impact on the season for me, that one against Crystal Palace.
I actually think psychologically, I've said this a few times, I think the Man United 2-2 was the one that had that effect. The reaction afterwards was like extraordinary.
But who was the reaction from?
Well, from the supporters, but I think it was in the players' heads. The players got in their own heads after that game because they thought they should have gone in, and they felt 3 times they played United this season, 3 times they've been the better team, 3 times they got results that they didn't want, and they came off the pitch that day after the 3rd time of doing it, going, "We've blown this," and they hadn't blown it. They were still within a fighting chance to win the league, and like you said, if they'd gone and beaten Palace, then you still put yourselves in a great position. They beat Fulham away; it was a tough game.
Because Palace was directly after Atlanta at home, wasn't it?
Same week.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I still think Atalanta.
So you don't lose to Palace if you lose.
Yeah.
If you don't lose to
I
Atlanta.
agree with that, and I agree with you on the Atalanta game, because I still think the biggest crime of that game for Liverpool is lose it 1-0. You know, if you're 1-0 down. In the second half, they went completely kamikaze and lost their way. And I think if they'd have got into it and gone, you know what, if we draw or lose this game, it's not the end of the world, because we'll go to Atalanta and we'll back ourselves to win, which they did do. So if they lost that 1-0, they still would have had a good chance of getting through. And that was the frustration.
I also think in that game, that was the one game where Klopp is prone to doing this. He overestimates his players because he's got that much loyalty in them, and I think he shouldn't have made as many changes. Going back to the start of the season, though, because I've thought about this as well, is if you remember at the start, it was the whole McAllister's been sent off. Why was that? It should never have happened. Van Dijk's sent off. We're up against it. Yeah. And I think then Liverpool got in their minds as a squad collectively, very quickly, a new squad, they managed to get together, and it kind of, it helped them, it unified them. And then suddenly you look at the games, even then it was like, oh, we've come from behind to win this game. We've done this, we've done that, we've got through this game, we just won this game. And it kind of went from then. And I think that had the season been the other way around, if you start off not so great, which you would have imagined would have been the case because it's a new squad, and then they finish reasonably strongly in that way and finish exactly the same thing, you get out Europa League quarter-final, third in the league, and win the League Cup, everyone would be like, well, actually, I'm looking forward to it. And obviously, the big thing is the fact that the manager's leaving. And I'll go back to what my dad always says. He always says, nobody ever remembers the first half. Sorry, nobody remembers the first half, yeah. So when you come away from a game, even if you've won 5-1 in the second half, they scored 1 goal, you'd scored all 5 in the first half, you're thinking, the second half was a bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are going to think of. But with, as you mentioned, with a bit of time, I think new manager comes in, bit of a reset. You look back and go, well, actually, we won a cup, got back in the Champions League. These players have got this experience. Yeah, we know that some players need to go, this, that and the other. I would say, overall, it's been a very encouraging season.
Yeah,
but you are allowed to be sad.
A similar point to the one you just made about your dad is sort of, if Liverpool won 9 games out of 10 and lost the 10th, the 10th game would be the one that would probably get more focused than the 9.
Yeah.
And in a way, I guess that is the same with a bad April compared to the previous 7 months of progress and success with the League Cup.
Yeah.
So what happens if they win the last 3 games now?
They'll finish with 84 points, which will be the 5th highest actually that they've ever had in the Premier League era.
Yeah.
Alongside, I think they got it maybe 09, was it? Benitez?
It was 86 or 09, I thought.
Was it?
Maybe not, but it's still an extraordinary amount of points, isn't it? I mean, it underlines how tough the league is.
It's the other 3 that the Klopp has already got.
Yeah.
It should do.
I think that's the other big thing, is that the manager is leaving, and I think people felt like, okay, there was the fairy tale ending aspect to it, but there was also at the same time like deep down you worry, don't you? You worry that Liverpool will drop off under a new manager. Arne Slot won't come in with a big reputation like Klopp did. So there is that concern there, and that's natural. So I think people are going, oh, this was a chance to win the league because we might not be in the conversation for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that you have to think like that. I still think this new manager, you have to give him the best chance and hope that he could continue to have Liverpool in the conversation. But I think that there's going to be naturally that worry from fans, and I think that means that this ends the season where they've really built their hopes up and thought, you know what, we're just going to get over the line here. That plays into it.
I've said it before, going from 5th to 1st is very, very difficult. Arsenal tried to do it last year, fell away over the last couple of weeks of the season. Yeah. Liverpool have done exactly the same thing, but Liverpool have also won a trophy, whereas Arsenal didn't last year.
Well, we should move on because we've still got a fair few things to talk about. Really quickly, Liverpool released their new kit yesterday. Yeah, it's very expensive, very, very expensive.
It is. The club have tried to absorb some costs where they feel they can, but high rises across the board. Almost a tenner onto every price that was 12 months ago. Liverpool blaming Nike. I'm sure Nike will have a reason for why they feel that they can increase it, but supporters being squeezed out again on top of the 2% increase, which obviously caused so much of a furore a few weeks ago. And
what's it, 80 quid for a kid's kit, or 80 quid for an adult kit?
Yeah, and then the match, the stadium shirt is 125, is it, something like that?
Absolutely ridiculous.
The only way to stop all of them from doing it is everybody to stop buying them.
But that's not going to happen, is it? It's the same with tickets, isn't it?
Unfortunately, that's market forces, isn't it? That's why the £30 for away thing is such a great triumph from the various sports associations who help make that happen. Yeah,
I mean, maybe the next step is they should push for some sort of cap on shirts, because ultimately you don't have to have a shirt, but I think for kids it's something that as a kid people loved having, and to price families out of being able to buy their kids kits, I think is
well, maybe they could come to the compromise of making the kids kits reasonably cheap, and then if you're an adult and you've got the money, you can pay the full whack for it, and I think people will be quite happy with that.
Also some speculation as well, isn't it? Liverpool are going to move to back to Adidas after the terms with Nike comes to an end.
What would you say?
I'd say Adidas, but I know it's...
I'd say Adidas, but I know
that's a Scouse thing, isn't it?
Well,
no, I'm not a Scouser.
You having the new kit?
I've always got time for a little bit of like thin yellow stripes on a Liverpool kit.
I'm not a big fan of the collar. I think it's always going to be one of those-
the collar's odd. Yeah.
I think if they jibbed that collar off, it would have been a really nice.
The collar
kit.
looks like something I'd have designed without my glasses on. Honestly, it's like I don't. I mean, what I would say is I've actually seen some pictures. I think everyone has now
Looks
of the
better.
whole kit,
Yeah.
and it looks way better as the whole
Yeah,
kit.
yeah.
It looks,
Rather than
just the shirt.
leather
Yeah.
flares or whatever.
or the trench coat that Alison had on.
Platform boots.
And if they move back to Adidas, which one are you having? Adidas, Nike, or New Balance?
Do you know what? I mean, I tend to by default go with Adidas, but the New Balance kits were nice, weren't they?
New Balance
Yeah.
were great, weren't they?
Adidas.
Adidas, yeah.
Bring back Warrior. Remember that?
Although not Adidas had a terrible collar. I think it was about 95, 96. Collibo.
Yeah.
That one is just like, it's not too dissimilar from the one that Nike got. now.
Adidas have made some of probably the best Liverpool kits.
The best Liverpool kit is 91, 92.
07, 08 with the...
I think
91,
late-
92.
late-
The three
Oh,
white
06,
stripes was the
07.
best one.
That was
Like,
the
that's
best
a whole different podcast,
Yeah.
and we've got the whole summer to get through, so let's not talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that too
that's
much.
true.
Right, Klopp also talked about still being angry about the Tottenham game, Doyley. I mean,
What happened? Come on, what?
we won't go over it again, but what we will do is just talk about Gorst. I know you've written this for Blood Red, so in fact I'll come to you because you have written it for Blood Red in the morning. I mean, that felt like a watershed moment, not just for Liverpool,
Should
but
have been,
perhaps
yeah.
for the
Yeah.
league. But again, tribalism, and it's natural, comes into it, and everyone sort of points the fingers and said, how dare you? Since then, Arsenal have done it, Nottingham Forest have done it, various of the teams have claimed conspiracy and all sorts of things going on with the league and PGMOL. Do you feel like it was an opportunity missed?
Yeah, massively. The Luis Diaz incident itself. Look, you can argue till you're blue in the face over whether you think Jota should have been sent off or Jones or whatever. But
Jones was still in the
they're subjective calls, aren't they? This was an objective goal which didn't end up on the scoreboard remarkably, and Liverpool were well within the rights to demand better from the officials. And actually, what came out in the kind of fallout from that was the news that they're allowed to go and referee in the Middle East, on a Wednesday or a Thursday before weekend games, and that is scandalous, really, isn't it? That was allowed as a happy working practice. It was
Go and do shifts for the Dubai Daily Star.
yeah. I'll do a Wednesday shift.
And if you make a mistake in your match report, take on too much.
A few typos. So, it was a chance to draw a line in the sand and for clubs to kind of pull together and say, look, the refereeing hasn't been good enough for a while now, and we need to know how it went. What are you going to do besides apologise every other week? The cuts no ice, certainly with fans, and I know Liverpool, some of the squad were unhappy with that for a long time, I think. And then Forrest coming out and saying Stuart Atwell's a Luton fan. It was just articulated so poorly.
Funny way of doing it.
But the general point was this refereeing isn't good enough, is it? And that, amongst all the hilarity and the craziness of that statement, there was a point in there somewhere. Vincent Kompany, he ducked it, didn't he? And then now all of a sudden he's there every week moaning about it. Postecoglou, fair enough, it was his team who kind of benefited
mate.
from it. Yeah,
Postecoglou.
He buried his head in the sand, which you can maybe understand to an extent, given it was his team at the time. But yeah, too many of them looked the other way, didn't they? And now it's I've got no sympathy for any of them when they're all bleating about the refs, and that was a chance to all come together, and it was missed.
You lived in Australia for a bit, didn't you?
I did, mate.
Yeah. Did they all say, mate?
They do actually a lot, yeah.
There you go.
I loved it. It was a great place. But I did think like Postecoglou was just any normal Australian fella.
Yeah.
Because he said mate at the end of everything for the first couple of months. They were like, he's brilliant. He's friendly. But yeah, anyway, go on.
The Tottenham thing, what I would say is that obviously it was a procedural error, which is something that we'd never seen before, and we haven't seen it since. So at least from that respect, the other clubs, such as all the clubs, they haven't had to cope with something like that. They've just had to cope with the rubbishness of the referee
Subjective.
rather than the actual application of a decision that had already been made, and a correct decision as well. That's the worst thing about it.
Yeah.
It was quite clearly correct.
Yeah, I mean that was it, isn't it? It's the procedure that Liverpool were angry with, and the fact that you listen back to the audio, and the fact that it was just so chaotic, just beggared belief. All these different people talking to each other. I still had this big thing at the time: nicknames being used.
Yeah, Ollie.
People going like
Michael Oliver. Ollie.
The referee was
Who's he?
Michael Oliver.
Hang on, what's wrong with that?
But because I think in an official process like that, where you're trying to come to a correct decision, everyone should be clear about who they're talking to, what they're talking about, what decision is being made. Like, one guy's going
just
like,
because it wasn't clear to you, I'm not sticking up for the refs here, but just because it wasn't clear to you doesn't mean it wasn't clear to them in the sense of who they were informing.
Maybe not, but it should be a clear process. And also, when you have things like the audio, which you can listen back to, if their bosses have got to listen back to that, everyone should be clear. And the best way to be clear is to just have a bit of a robotic process where people don't speak over each other. People are almost identified, whether it be by number, match official 1, match official 2, I don't care. But you have to have a clear process. And I found it bizarre listening to it at the time, where you had all these different voices.
Disorienting, wasn't it?
Making some of them making little jokes and going, "Good process, boys," and slapping each other on the back. There should have been none of that. But I'll go back to I've said all along, and I still really feel strongly about this. I don't think the standard of refereeing is any better, worse than it ever has been. Referees will never ever. You'll never be satisfied. There'll never be a good standard of refereeing, because you will always have an unrealistic expectation of what the standard of refereeing should be. But they've made it worse by magnifying it and applying VAR over the top of it, which means that we get a million looks at things and all go. And then we can go. The Curtis Jones sending off really annoyed me that day, because it's the sort of thing we saw at Bournemouth not long after. And we saw one recently where did Liverpool playing someone over the top of the ball?
Paqueta last week.
On
McAllister.
And they didn't even they can't go back and give a yellow card, but they just deemed that was okay.
Well, the funny thing about that is watching it, we didn't even think anything of it, really, did we, at the time?
No.
We didn't think anything of it at the time, in the same way we didn't think anything of the Curtis Jones thing at the time.
But that
was not that one, was I? It was Theo. Theo was there with you for that one.
Yeah, but you didn't think anything of it at the time, presumably.
I can't remember now. I've had a few Guinness.
Well, we are trying to make it an exact science, aren't we? I think refereeing cannot be an exact science. And we are desperately trying to go. Everyone says like there's got to be consistency. It's never going to be consistency in refereeing because it's a job based on human nature. So
and this mic'd up show that they do just makes it worse. It's no use nor ornament, because it just brings back these incidents into the firing line for people to fume about again. A few weeks ago, when Jeremy Doku kicks McAllister and the anger subsides, and then 10 days later, it comes back into the news cycle because Howard Webb's talking with Michael Owen, and didn't really say much, do they? But just the fact that they're highlighting what they believe is how the decision is reached. It just gets people's backs up again, and again, it just highlights officiating. And
but what if Howard Webb sits there in that programme and goes, "Yeah, that should have been a penalty," but the referee who was there at the time still thinks, if he honestly holds the opinion it wasn't, you'd still sit there and go, "Well, you might be the boss, but I don't think it was because and I've got to do it in the time and in the moment."
At least that show is what it has done, though, is it's made referees more accountable in the public eye, and I think that's where it's actually quite a good thing, because I'm sure the referees, it was the VA, was it Atwell? For the Forest game, it wasn't it? Obviously, because he supports it, apparently. Which made all the difference, because
the white shirts on.
Enough problems, I'm pretty sure he's thinking, "Oh God, I don't want to be on this again." So he's got to, he doesn't want to be embarrassed.
Does that help them?
No, I don't think it does. I think it's just decisions that are being made by fear, aren't they? Rather than
the professionals, they shouldn't be made by fear. Maybe now, initially, it's fear, but then it's over. We've got to get this right. Some footballers just play their entire careers in fear.
Don't want to end up on mic'd up.
Well, yeah. Moving on to the Tottenham game. Moving on quickly to a quick discussion around Slot, because we did a little piece this week about some of the transfers he needs. I'll start with you, Gorsty, because you didn't contribute to that piece, so you can at least give a fresh view. We were debating where he needs strengthening in the summer, where he needs new players.
Yeah, I still think Liverpool are a top class defensive midfielder short. I think Wataru has probably exceeded a lot of expectations, hasn't he? But Liverpool could use a real world-class operator in that position, which frees up Alexis McAllister to play his more favoured role every week, and Endo can step in as and when for certain games. I think that'd be a good start. But the more kind of sexier option is up front. I'd love to go and see Liverpool buy a real top centre forward. We've spoken about Darwin Núñez till we're blue in the face on this pod, and he's certainly an option for Liverpool. But is he option A to score 30 goals a season? I'm not sure. That'd be something I'd like to see, but I don't think they will.
The football writers have just voted the Player of the Year, who's Phil Foden, who I think, would you agree with that? Phil Foden the winner?
Yeah.
Okay, last few months he's been excellent.
Phil Foden. Now, second and third was Declan Rice and Rodri, who are both defensive midfielders at the top two teams of the country, which does underline what you're saying, is that Liverpool need to sign an established defensive midfielder who can do those things you mentioned about pre-McAllister, relieving the pressure on Endo, who can basically become the Milner role, who I think is what he was bought for anyway, and also give Bajcetic some more experience in terms of influence over, it's because he's going to end up playing there as well. Guidance, that's what I was looking for, thank you. So, yeah, there's that. I think they need a wide forward, they need someone who's fast, and they need someone who's going to score goals. And that goes right back to what we were saying at the start. It sounds a bit like Mohamed Salah. So how do you replace him? Liverpool will be looking at trying to replace him now, long term, with buying somebody. I think they're the two. On top of that, centre-back.
Yeah, centre-back.
Possibly
I agree.
goalkeeper, depending on what happens with Kelleher. But I think Jaros, given how well Vítězslav Jaros has just won the Austrian Cup with Sturm Graz, and he's going to win the league as well, ahead of Salzburg, who are going to be in that Club World Cup thingamajig, aren't they? Because they've got they've done well enough over the last few years. That suggests to me that he could be somebody that Liverpool will want to have a closer look at over the summer. Their player.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I think I was going to make the Rice and Rodri points. I think if you look at any time you take Rodri out the Man City team, how they seem to struggle, and you look at how I think Arsenal have gone up a level since they signed Rice, and I think they made a really good. They did very well in the summer to basically say, you know what, whatever the cost, we're going to get this player because we think.
To be fair, Liverpool did try to do
I was going to say,
that.
Liverpool know the value and importance of that, don't they? They tried, just kind of left it too late.
Yeah. But I certainly think they do well. I think they need a centre back. But my big order of the day for any players is their injury record has to be spotless. Because I've said loads of pods before, for a club that goes on about, we use data. Well, what's the data say about injuries? Because Konate was bought, and I like Konate a lot, but he came in literally off six months out injured.
What you would say, to be fair to that, Szoboszlai doesn't really get injured. No. He had the one, he plays regularly. No. McAllister hasn't been injured. Endo hasn't been injured. Gakpo hasn't been injured. Yeah. So I think they've kind of learned from that. Yeah. I think.
Saying that, sometimes you're unlucky. Don't think Keita had many injuries until he came to Liverpool and had them all. So.
I think having to play the games with the intensity that they have for too long has impacted that as well. There's a lot to be said for it's kind of 2018-19 campaign where you're a lot more controlled. Yeah. You don't need to go so much on the gas, and that inevitably helps.
18-19, yeah. And then they went out both domestic cup competitions early.
Yeah. Should we pick a team for Spurs?
Can we not talk about the under-21s first, very briefly?
You want to talk about the under-21s?
Yeah, basically the under-21s are playing in a playoff on Sunday against Crystal Palace. The way this works is the Premier League 2 this season has been one league, 26 teams, not dissimilar to what the Champions League is going to be like next season, which Liverpool obviously have qualified for.
Have we got to learn new rules for the Champions League?
I've done all that. You read it. When you were off, I'll send you the piece. So basically, the top 16 are all going to play off. First be 16th, second be 15th, wherever have you. Liverpool finished 8th. They're playing Crystal Palace, who finished 9th. That's at Kirby. It's at 1 o'clock, so you're able to get down to watch that and then go off and watch the first team against Tottenham 3.5 hours later.
So what happens if Liverpool win?
So Liverpool win, they go through to the next round, which I don't know after that. But I'm assuming it's just a straight knockout, so it's like it'll be like a ladder, as it were, until you get the two teams in the final, and then they win.
So if you win that league, it doesn't really mean anything. You just get the easiest sort of... easiest.
If you win that league, you win the Premier League too, which is what Man City have won for the past 4 or 5 years, and has been seen as a kind of sign of a club that's able to generate youngsters. And to be fair, City are right near the bottom because most of their youngsters have either gone off and joined Chelsea or been involved in the first team, like Oscar Bob and people like that. So, and they're going to make money, but they're going to make a few bob. See what I did there? Off all the players that they sell. So, yeah, I think it is a sign. And what's interesting for me is that if you look at the league this season, the Premier League 2, I think the first 5 teams are all London teams. I think it's Tottenham, Arsenal, Fulham, Chelsea and West Ham.
Big catchment area. Yeah. Also, as well, with Liverpool being in the Champions League next season, is the return of the UEFA Youth League, which...
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
It was probably one of the highlights of last season. You get to see Ben Doak, Conor Bradley, Stefan Bajcetic, Trent Konate-Doherty... Yeah. Oakley Cannoneer, there was loads in that team.
Oakley was knocking around the action today. First time I've seen him in a while.
Yeah, so so it was a good competition to watch before the seniors later on the night. So yeah, look forward to that next season.
Good stuff. Let's pick our teams for Tottenham then and give some score predictions. We'll start with you, Gorsty.
Yeah, Alisson, Trent. People are reluctant to drop Kwanzaa, but I think give Canate a run now between now and the end of the season.
Is this based on Van Dijk being fit then? You're
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's a good point.
if they say Van Dijk missed training for the week, he's out for like 6 months,
Yeah, that's a season over. Yeah, we will find out, I guess, when training pictures come out, probably after we've recorded this. But
No, they came out
They can't yesterday. Have you
so-
been paying any attention to what we've been doing?
I was
this
off
week?
yesterday, so
Yeah.
I tried to media blackout. Yeah, all right. I'll say he's not going to be fit, and I'll go with Canate and Kwanzaa.
Who's your left back?
Robertson.
Yes.
Yes, as well. Yeah, that's the right answer. Ian Doyle in midfield.
I'm going to have Wataru Endo.
Yes.
I'm going to have Alexis McAllister.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with somebody else. Pick Ghostie's team first.
Sorry.
Yeah,
if-
I'll go
I'm
with
going to Graham Birch. I'm going to go Graham Birch. I'm going to have Graham Birch have a game.
okay,
Graham
so
Birch.
for anyone who doesn't speak Ian Doyle, that's Wataru Endo, Alexis McAllister, and Ryan
Actually, there's
Gravenberch.
nothing wrong with McAllister. It's apparently is that how you're meant to pronounce it?
No.
No, but I am fluent. I am
I've only
fluent in
studied
Doyle.
it
Fluent in
quite a
Doyle.
few
You
times.
must speak very good Doyle.
Yeah, I'm the. I give the language classes.
Yeah, dear.
Yeah.
Can you go and teach Doyle abroad?
Rosetta Doyle.
Gap year in South Korea.
I'll go to Australia.
Go and teach Doyle.
My midfield is the same as yours, but I'm going to play Szoboszlai. I think Liverpool have had the rarity of a full week in training, so there should be no moaning about tired or anything like that. So Szoboszlai comes in.
Yeah, I want to see Graham Birch. Having been not worried about him in the same way you're worried about Keita, I feel as though he's merited a bit of a longer run in the team. I think before he got injured in the League Cup game, he's done quite well for a few games, and he got injured, then he's come back, and I think the last 2 times he's played, he's done well. So yeah, him.
So you're picking Szoboszlai over Gravenberch, and
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
the same midfield. I think I'm going to go with probably Gravenberch, because I think I think towards the end of the season they're back in the Champions League. That they need to sort of get minutes under his belt. So yeah, I think I'd probably go for him. But I mean, either way, Szoboszlai needs to pick his form up, doesn't he? So I think it would be helpful for whichever one of those two does get the nod. There's my phone going off. Should be on silent. From 3.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Salah, Diaz, and I don't think Gakpo's done anything too wrong, really. So I'll give him the nod over Nunes.
That was my phone. Salah, Gakpo, and Diaz.
Yeah,
But we picked the same team. No, we haven't. We got Graham
Different
Birch.
midfield,
yeah, same. Salah, Gakpo, and Diaz. Nunes off the bench. And your score prediction?
4-0 to Liverpool.
What makes you say that?
It's Tottenham.
It's Tottenham. Wow.
No,
Clip that in. The Tottenham accounts might give that a share.
They've got plenty to go out from previous.
no. I don't think Liverpool have shown any evidence that they can snap out of a real struggling period, and it normally takes a lot. So I think it'll be a draw. I'm going to go 2-2.
God, have you two swapped brains or personalities? What's going on here?
No, I just realised I need to stop saying they're going to win every week, really, because
It's
It's taking it this long. It's taken until
Yeah.
3 games to the end of the season.
Yeah. You're the Mark Lawrenson of the Blood Red
Yeah.
Pod. If we look back over the last
Invincible.
5 years,
Liverpool
Liverpool
winning by
won
20
like-
points.
just do like quick clips of me saying the scoreline
Yeah.
every week.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool. I think, like you say, I don't think they're going to be quite snapped out of it, but I do feel like a week off. And even just Klopp's demeanour gave me a bit of confidence before. I thought, you know what? It feels like he's right. The pressure's off a little bit now. Just enjoy these last few games. It's second to last game at Anfield. And Tottenham
Flag
have
day
had
as well.
Flag day. And Tottenham have had a pretty tough time of things recently, haven't they? So perhaps,
Beat Chelsea last night, didn't they?
yeah, perhaps Liverpool can take advantage. Yeah, and
Did we do one more question before we go? Any more questions?
any more questions before we go? Let me just have a look.
Does Ed come back with anything?
What do you think about the future of FSG with Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes, and Arne Slot?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's very difficult.
Future of
At least,
FSG.
the one thing I would say is at least they've sort of seemed to have put together a solid structure quite quickly.
And early, yeah.
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 Whereas you look
Yeah.
at, I've seen today like few accounts saying that Man United could target Thomas Tuchel and Chelsea could target Hansi Flick, and you're thinking, God, they're going to go into a summer again with so much uncertainty around their managerial position. I'm glad that whatever you think of Slot, Liverpool seem to have done things quite quickly and are going to have things in place for the summer, which I think there's a lot to be said in today's.
Yeah. I think when Liverpool were employing Klopp, there were only 2 outstanding candidates. You didn't need to be a data football analysis to know that Jurgen Klopp was good and Carlo Ancelotti were good. This time around, it's a little bit of a different field. So I think that's why FSG have kind of leaned leaned into the experience and the knowledge of Michael Edwards as opposed to, Tom Werner, for example, having a say in something maybe he's not wholly qualified to do.
And it's a continuation of a very good job from Klopp, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not a rip it up start again, which it really was with Klopp,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It was, I think they still had the transfer committee there, and the club wasn't really fully formed in the way that the FSG wanted it. So hopefully that is a good structure. But thank you to all your questions. Please give us a like. Please subscribe. Give us some stars if you're listening to the podcast version. And we'll be back on Monday to discuss the Tottenham game and to look ahead to the final couple of games of the season, probably to talk Arne Slot and much more. Thanks again for your support. Much appreciated. Ta-ra.